until I met you. Told myself I'd get by without love. But it sure feels right. And here I am. I'm back on my feet again.
Guys, performing Friday, June 9th, 1 week from today at the Wildey Theater in Edwardsville, Illinois, 8 p.m. on the 40th anniversary tour right now on the Darryn Yates Show, live on Riot Radio. Superstar, singer-songwriter, performer, Mr. John Waite. Thank you again. How are you, my friend?
I'm very good, thanks. I'm in California at the moment. I'm in Santa Monica. Just had several cups of coffee and trying to wake up.
I love it.
Where are you? Oh, you're in the Midwest, right?
We're actually in Collinsville, Illinois. We're about 15 minutes from St. Louis.
Oh, that's great. I like St. Louis.
Yeah, and we're about 5 minutes from the venue you're going to be playing next week. So looking forward to it.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, and I guess it sold out pretty fast. You're
yeah, no, it was
it.
a great time last time. It was a really great night. They're nice people there, and the sound's good and everything. We're looking forward to. It's the first gig of the tour.
Nice.
So it's great just to kick it off, you know.
Nice. Well, congrats. 40 years in the business. The Babies launched with the late 70s. Isn't It Time? The single. Of course, Every Time I Think of You. Congrats. What an awesome career, and you're keeping it going. I love it.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. I never thought I would be able to have a full life making music, but I mean, when it's what you do, you sort of get up in the morning and just play the guitar. I mean, it's like you write things down all the time. It isn't like it's a job. I mean, it's what I am. So really, you know, I've been blessed for that, and it just kept going. The people wanted to hear me sing and write songs, and it's just been really a great thing to do.
Nice. Well, you know, I've done a lot of interviews in the past, you know, with celebrities and stuff, but the response I have gotten with you, I mean, I can't tell you how many people have sent in questions to ask him and this and that, and shout outs from all these different places all over the world. So if you don't mind,
that's great. I
did pick a few questions from the fans. I have a couple of my own if you don't mind. Hope you have a little.
Yeah, sure. Whatever you want to ask, I'll do my best to give you a straight up answer.
This is awesome. Thank you again, John. So you're from Lancaster, England. You launched onto the scene with the Babies, late 70s. So before that, tell me how you first got started in music and how the Babies came together.
Well, you know, I'm from a musical family. My cousin Michael was a banjo player and guitar player in the Temperance Seven. And when I was a kid, he played me all this sort of big Bill Brunsey blues stuff. And, you know, his sister gave me some singles. And their mother, my Auntie Doris, gave me a record player.
Nice.
Because we didn't have much when we were kids. We didn't really have a lot of anything. But I did have this radiogram that was half radio and half record player.
Yeah.
And these singles, and it's before the Beatles. You know, I was just not more than 4 years old, really. But it was a fantastic experience to hear all this music coming from America, and I discovered that I had an affinity for the blues.
Yeah.
And I love country music, and I love Brenda Lee, and Elvis was a bit too adult for me. I didn't get Elvis at all, being a kid. But somewhere in there, the Shadows arrived with my brother, Joe. He's a great guitar player, too. And he was playing me the Shadows, and that was the first record I bought. And then the Beatles happened, and it's just like everything happened at once. By the time I was about 9, the Beatles were on the scene, and that was the end of it. Everything was just music. And I was in local bands when I was at art school. When I was about 16, I went to art school, and a local art school, a very good one. Beautiful building with skylights in it for the life class. And it was a real art school kind of life. But I played in local bands, and then eventually moved to London with a band called England, and we played like the Marquee Club on Water Street and hung around in Soho and did all that. Then I quit and went back to Lancaster to see my girlfriend. I missed her so much.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, it was bad. And but I'd run out. There was nowhere to play. I didn't have a job. I couldn't really go home again. It was really bad. And I got a letter from America saying, come and play bass in this band in Cleveland. So I went to Cleveland for about 4 months. And that fell through. Went home to London. Got a small crash pad over a sweet shop in Belsize Park. Yeah. And somehow got involved in what was to become the Babies. And the manager, Adrian Miller, wrote me in to write songs, play bass, and sing. They had a guitar player. That was the Babies. They, it was a guitar player. They had nothing, really. But I had songs, and I could sing, and I could play bass, and I guess I looked the part.
Nice.
And we got Tony Brock down. We were rehearsing by Tower Bridge down south of the Thames, which people will think is London Bridge, but it's not. It's Tower Bridge, the one with the two towers on it. And we were in a side street called Tooley Street, in a big warehouse in the basement. It was like Charles Dickens. It was really London in the mid-70s. It was cold. It was winter. It was a lot of trouble. But it was a dream, we'd all been around the block, gone nowhere. Me and Tony had really done a lot of gigs. But the other Mike hadn't. He was just sort of like just hanging around Chelsea.
Yeah.
But we had a couple of years of bringing people down to try and make it a bigger band, and we recorded some demos. Eventually we got Wally Stalker, who arrived last when we were about to throw in the towel. He was the last guy to knock on the door at Tooley Street.
Oh, really?
And, yeah, I remember opening the door, and there he was, all 5'7" of him, with his big army overcoat, this black overcoat with a guitar case.
Oh,
and I knew it. When I heard the doorbell ring upstairs, I knew that it was good news. And I ran up the stairs laughing. And I opened the door, and there was Wally. And we had a band suddenly. And we filmed us lip-syncing along to the demos, and we got signed. It was an unbelievable thing to be signed. And we got a huge deal with Chrysalis. And we made a record with Bob Ezrin in Toronto, and then we went back home. And then came to America for a 12-day tour. America liked us. When we started touring America, we built this big following, live following, and the rest is history, really.
Yeah, and you were what, in your teens, early 20s?
No, I was about 22, 23
yeah,
then.
Right. Oh, man, that's awesome.
Yeah, pretty young. The 70s, if you look back at Almost Famous, Cameron Crowe's movie, that was pretty much what was going on. It was a great time. Yeah. It'll never come again because it was so new.
Right.
But with Rolling Stone and Cream magazine and Circus magazine, it was like you couldn't find rock and roll unless you looked for it.
Yeah.
It wasn't commercialized like it is today.
Gotcha. So when you first came to America, started playing, was there a big difference in playing overseas in Europe, or versus, was it a giant culture shock, or was it no big deal, or what was the vibe?
No, it was a giant culture shock. All the things that I knew what was coming because I'd been to Cleveland.
Right.
The other guys didn't. They'd never been. But I spent 4 months in Ohio, and I kind of knew the music scene really well. And I was very aware of Aerosmith and Joe Walsh, the James Gang, and Humble Pie, and the bands that were doing very well. And I knew what was going on.
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't. But the head of the record company knew what was going on also. So he kind of believed me to sort of put it together and keep going. But it was a culture shock. I mean, going to get a McDonald's, to the highways, the buildings, the Art Deco buildings in the Northwest and in the Midwest and on the East Coast, really, in New York City. It was a fabulous, interesting time because it was still rough. It hadn't been, the freeways were really, they were connecting American cities. But Cleveland was different to Detroit. Detroit was different to Houston. New York City was way different to any of it. Boston felt like Boston. Now that's blurred. But when you're on the road and you're that age and you're looking at America for the first time, each city was very, very different.
Right.
It was fabulous, really. It was unbelievably great.
That's awesome. So talk a little bit about the transition from the Babies to doing your solo thing. If I researched correctly, there was a fan incident where they grabbed you and pulled you off stage. Something.
Yeah, I forget where we were. Cincinnati, and I kind of came off the drum riser with the mic stand, and somebody pulled a cable, I think, and I twisted around and came down wrong and tore the cartilage in my knee.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it was painful. They carried me off stage.
Rock and roll ain't easy, is it?
What was that?
I said rock and roll ain't easy, is it?
No, it was pretty tough that night.
Yeah.
But they strapped me up, gave me a bunch of painkillers, and we tried to play again in Akron the next night. And that was the end of it. I got halfway through the set and just blacked out. So it was kind of like, but at least you went out in Chrissy Hynde's hometown. I always thought of that. I thought, well, that's okay. Chrissy Hynde was born here. There's a certain connection to the intent.
Yeah.
But I went home to England, and then I came back about 4 months later to live in New York City and start a solo record. And that didn't work out after 2 years. It had some big songs on it, but the record company wasn't really doing well.
You mean with it?
We had
Ignition, change, yeah.
Yeah. And I was very disheartened at that because I think that the record company kind of dropped the ball on the babies towards the end. So I quit. I went home, got married, bought a small cottage in the country, and that was it. And about 6 months later, a lawyer in New York rang up and said he could get me out of my deal with Christi. It would cost me a lot of money, but he could do it.
But you did it.
And he did it. He got me off, and I went to EMI, flew to L.A. to sign the contract, met Gary Myrick, who was a guitar player, and we started writing songs immediately and just went in the studio. It was not planned.
Right.
And I didn't go home for like 2 months.
Yeah.
I left my wife. I was married at the time. Went home. Went to America and didn't come back for 2 months. But I did write a terrific record, No Breaks, and we had Missing You on that.
Yeah.
And after that, the rest is history. It's just like it just took off and was huge, you know.
Right on, man. So No Breaks, 1984, the single Missing You. This brings me to my our first fan question from Michael Corley. He is a Riot Radio host. He hosts The Music of Our Lives here, a very cool show. He says, John, did you know how huge Missing You was going to be? And if so, was it from the time you first heard it in the headphones, or was it later after it was mixed and edited and all that stuff? When did you know?
When I was doing the demo, I was at somebody's house singing over a guitar track. I just heard a few bars of this guitar track, and I said, I want to sing on top of that. Just give me a shot at that. And I put the headphones on in this guy's spare room and sang along and came up with almost the entire lyric immediately. It just came out of absolutely nowhere. Yeah, it was shocking. But I always write like that. I write like that a lot. I'm able still to be unself-conscious enough to just word associate and go. And when it hit the chorus, I sang I Ain't Missing You At All. I mean, it was perfect. And I stood back from the mic, and it was like being punched. I just knew it was number one. I knew it arrived at a place that was in my destiny.
That's so cool.
It sounds deep, but I really understood it. And I went to Jamaica. I went back to New York and mixed the record. And my wife flew over, and we went to Jamaica. We went to take a holiday. And I remember being in the surf with a Walkman, listening to it over and over again. And I just knew it was going to be a different life.
Oh my gosh.
And I actually dropped the
chills.
Walkman in the surf, and that was kaput the Walkman. But I remember that trip and just knowing that my life was going to change beyond all belief.
So your shows probably went from what, maybe a few hundred, a couple thousand, to what, tens of thousands, right? I mean, what was that like?
Well, you know, I mean, you really had to go out with another band to get those sort of figures. If you were, I mean, those kind of bands like Fleetwood Mac and the Eagles, that happens at a certain level with a huge management. But I think we were still, I didn't really have a manager. I had two lawyers, just like I was doing, just putting it together and saying, okay, we'll go and do that. And I think that was my saving grace, really, is that I could come in and play places and sell it out and do well, sell about 2,000, 4,000 tickets, and play big festivals. But I could always back away and go back to my life. I didn't want to be in the spotlight all the time. I knew what that was like. And being solo, you're a lot more of a moving target. There's nobody to really shield you from other people. You've got to deal with it all. So that's the way I've wanted to do it all my life, really.
Right. So Missing You takes off. You do your thing. You live a different life, pretty much. And so in '88 or so, the original members of the Babies kind of got back together, and then is that when Bad English formed?
Yeah, I'd signed a solo deal with Epic. And I went in to meet them with my manager, and the A&R guy was really strange. He wanted to make a record that I didn't write, you know, and I'd just written Missing You. He was saying, well, you know, John, we're going to take care of the songs. And I was like, what the fuck is this?
Right, well, I mean, a guy that writes Missing You, I think you can call the shots now, can't you?
Well, he didn't think so. He was like, you know, he was going to tell me what to do. And I thought, well, I really want to be on Epic, you know, because they're a great company. And Polly Anthony, the head of promotion there, was an incredible force. She passed away a couple of years ago, but she's a beautiful, intelligent, sexy go-getter, and I wanted to work with her.
Nice.
And I thought, well, what can I do? You know, I don't want to be dealing with this guy. And I thought about it. I went away, and I came back and thought, I'm going to put a band together. I'll put a band together, and it'll be 4 or 5 of us, and I won't have to deal with this guy. We'll just be united. It'd be a very different thing to do. Nobody expects it, and I'll be able to get back to writing. You know, and I did. It took about 3 months to wind up with me and Jonathan Cairns started working together. Then he brought Neil in. Then Neil brought Dean Castronovo in, and then Ricky Phillips showed up, and that was it. And we just said, okay, we'll do this.
Right.
And we became Bad English, and for the next 2.5 years, we toured and, you know, had a lot of success.
Nice. So, of course, the singles, you know, When I See You Smile, Price of Love. Our next fan question is from Jeff Koons. He says, do you still have the black leather jacket from the Price of Love video? And he wants to know if you have a car or a motorcycle or both.
No, I don't have the leather jacket. I actually... I tossed that away a long time ago. It was all worn out, but it was pretty cool. It had a picture of Jesus on the back from a tapestry, and it was like a real motorcycle. It was a shot motorcycle jacket. It was a really good one, but it's seen a lot of miles, and in the end, it just got tossed. But
right.
Jeff, I know Jeff. He's a great guy.
Nice.
That's Ohio. Yeah.
Yeah, very cool. You guys, if you're just tuning in, this is the Darryn Yates Show on Riot Radio. Singer-songwriter John Waite is here with us. It's johnwaiteworldwide.com. He's performing next Friday, June 9th, at the Wildey Theater in Edwardsville, Illinois. It's sold out, of course, 8 p.m. So John, you so the band kind of dissolved. Bad English, was that? How did that happen? Was it good? Was it a good terms, bad terms? Was it something you?
No, it wasn't good. We were in the record.
Yeah.
We'd been sort of pushed back in the studio, and the producer didn't like anything we did, and the band fractured. I mean, it fractured,
right.
And I was like working 18 hours a day, trying to come up with anything just to get us going. And everybody was trying to kick in songs, but it all sounded like something else to me. It
right.
just sounded like we're trying to sound like other bands, which is. I think there was a sense of panic that we'd spent a lot of money in the first 2 weeks, and then the producer became like, I don't like any of this, and we said, well, that's what we do, you know, and it's like, well, you know, and it really messed us up.
Yeah.
And I think people just panicked. I didn't. I was pretty sure that we could make a great record if we just took our time. But the clock was running, you know. When the clock's running, people expect you to come up with the goods.
Right.
When they snap their fingers, and you know, you write great songs inside maybe a 2-month period. You can write really strong songs and edit and rewrite and edit again, but you can't just write a song the night before and come in. I've done it a couple of times, but it's exceptional to do that.
Right.
And it just became ragged. We lost our focus completely, and there was a lot of, you know, long silences and people just not knowing what to do, and in the end I just walked out. I mean, it was just, I couldn't deal with it. I had a big row with the producer, and it just
did
said,
you really?
You know, fuck. Yeah, I did.
This sounds like an awesome movie. I think you should make a movie in this.
No, I think it's the same with any band. You know, people say, oh, that was my hit record and the record company blew it. But, you know, records come and go pretty fast, and things happen pretty fast. And people are very subjective. They see it as they want to see it.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just the way of the world. I mean, you have this lucky streak and you have this, like, silver bullet, and you're doing well and nobody can stop you. And then you take your eyes off the prize for a second, and it's gone. I mean, things change all the time. And you should accept that and be positive and be grateful for the great things that happen in your life, and try and reinvent, you know, not just stick with what works or worked 30 years ago. You should always try and move forward. And I think that's a difficult thing for a lot of people in business, you know.
Mm-hmm. Well, you had a pretty stable, awesome solo career to fall back on. So you released a bunch of awesome albums. I saw that you toured with Ringo Starr and his all-star band. I gotta ask about that experience.
Well, it was crazy. I mean, I got the phone call. I'd just been on the road with Peter Frampton and Journey, and I'd made quite a lot of money, and I thought, well, I'm going to buy a place. So I bought a place in Santa Monica, 2,000 square feet. I'm sitting in it now. And the phone rang, and I'd bitten off a lot financially, and the phone rang and it says, "Do you want to go and play with Ringo?" And I thought, well, geez, who doesn't,
Yeah.
And I thought, well, I used to be a bass player, I could play bass, and I was thinking about it, and they made me an offer, and I thought, well, if I do the tour, I'll never have any debts, I'm sort of, and I just thought, well, I'll jump in and see what happens. So about 3 months later, we all met up in Toronto and rehearsed for 2 weeks, and it came out pretty good. I mean, Sheila E. was in it, and Colin Hay, and Paul Carrick.
Nice.
Paul Carrick was fantastic. It was a very good band. I think I'm very simple on the bass, but I'm driving, I dig in. The first 3 Babies albums, I played bass on them.
There you go.
And I know what I'm doing. It's sometimes weird playing sort of Hispanic funk with Sheila E. But that was a challenge. But it was great. I mean, Ringo, no matter which part of his career you look at, he's always going to be Ringo with the Beatles. And no matter how you look at it, it's absolutely gigantic, his contribution to percussion and how good the drumming was in the Beatles.
Definitely.
I mean, it doesn't matter which period of the Beatles you look at. It's staggering how good he is. From the first album, that sort of like hitting the snare the way he hit it, and it's just a millisecond behind the beat kind of thing. It's never on top of the beat.
Right.
I mean, he is
awesome.
a dream. He's just Ringo. So I just dug in. I just wanted to be part of it, shut up and play, really.
Nice. Well, before I ask you about the duet with Alison Krauss, I got to ask you, so Santa Monica, I used to live in Santa Monica. I was a substitute teacher out there, and I got to ask about Barney's Beanery. Have you ever been out there? I have to ask.
In Barney's Beanery?
Yeah. Is that still there? I think it's at West LA.
Yeah, Barney's Beanery. It's on the promenade, yeah.
Yeah.
It's, I used to go in there and have a pint of Guinness or two. But it's a little claustrophobic for me. The Barney's Beanery down in Hollywood, West Hollywood, I used to go in there with the Babies after we played gigs and play pool with the Hells Angels. I mean, that's my Barney's Beanery, the original one.
Oh, there you go. Well,
yeah, but the second one is a little touristy, and it's they've got like aeroplane seats at the bar, which makes me very suspicious.
Oh, that's great. Well, I think I remember seeing a bunch of pictures of you up there, signed pictures, at the Barney's Beanery. Is a pretty fun. Yeah, that's awesome. So, Missing You, released as a duet with Alison Krauss in 2006, it reaches, I think the top 40. And at this point, you're so used to having, several songs out, in the Billboard charts, top songs, charting pretty high. I got to ask, do you pay attention to the charts, or is that something, after this much success, does it really even matter?
No, I honestly don't look at the charts anymore, especially now. When I was living in Nashville, I was very interested in acoustic music, and I always truly did love country and blues. So I went to live in Nashville about 10 years ago, and made a lot of records there. It was very sleepy, it was very, very country, and it was people like Vince Gill and Rodney Crowell, Dolly Parton, Brenda Lee. You'd see them on the streets, you'd talk to them. It was just really country, old-timey, and Alison was a big part of that.
Yeah.
She hangs out with people like Larry Sparks and Del McCurry and the Waites, really authentic players. Now, it's still a great city, but it's very, very commercialized. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of weird being there. There's so many people in such a small space.
Right.
It's you go there now and you're in traffic jams where there's never any cars on the road. So it's kind of like I haven't felt the urge to go back there because of that. My time there was really, I think, authentic, and I was working with really great people, which leads me to Alison. I called Alison up and said, "Do you want to sing on Missing You?" And it was like, "Yeah." And yeah, and it was like she was such a great singer, and I love Alison. I really do. I love Alison.
Yeah.
It was a big thing for me.
With your guys' voices, it was such an awesome track. Congrats.
Yeah,
awesome.
it was honestly, it was probably one of the penultimate moments. Everything about that track was right. It was hard. The drumming was hard. The guitar playing was hard, and we sang. It was really a beautiful thing. It's still my favorite version of Missing You.
Yeah.
And,
Is it really?
And it was just incredible, and it was just incredible to work in her world and sing on her record and meet all these people that were like real country bluegrass people. It meant a lot to me. I really understood it, and just to be a fly on the wall and see that world and play the Opry. We used to play the Opry together. I brought my band down and we played the Opry live on the radio. That was really. I had my heart in my mouth doing that. That's the most nervous I've ever been.
Oh my gosh!
Really yeah.
Well, our next fan question, I think you kind of answered it. Larry Corley wants to know the backstory of how you and Alison Krauss came together and got the. Is pretty much you wanted her voice on it. You called her up.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. That's just the way it was.
Yeah. So now in 2011, you released another awesome album, Rough and Tumble, and this time you partnered up with Matchbox 20 guitarist Kyle Cook. How'd that come together?
I got a mutual friend in Indiana that knew Kyle, Jeff Worley. And he said, "You got to meet Kyle. He's a great guy. You should work together." And he knew the Matchbox guys, and we were both in Tennessee. And I rang him up one morning and said, "Do you want to get together?" And he said, "Yeah." And he came over, and we sat in this rehearsal room and played the guitar. And we wrote a song called "Better Off Gone" immediately, and we liked each other. He's a great guy, and he's a very underrated guitar player. I mean, he's a tremendous guitar player. Super musical guy, and a team kind of guy. He's really about getting the result. He'll spend hours with you. He gets it, And we wrote 4 songs together, Evil, and a ton of other songs. I mean, If You Ever Get Lonely, which was superb, great song. And I was going to put out an EP. It was like 4 songs. Here we go. We're just going to do these 4 songs. It's going to be stress-free. Everybody's going to love everybody. It's no worries. Just put them out. It doesn't matter these days whether it's an album or an EP. And I made this EP. And my manager immediately said, "That's so great. We want more." And I thought, I planned to go back to Europe for a trip. And I had a month left. And Kyle was like off doing something. He was up to his neck in his own life, and I was stuck. I was back in LA.
Yeah.
So I looked through all my demos, and I just cut a bunch of songs that were sitting around. In 3 days, we cut 7 songs in 3 days.
Wow.
And wrote Rough and Tumble the day before we went into the studio, and cut all these songs and left them. I was going to mix them when I got back, but we made an album out of it in 3 days.
Wow.
And Rough and Tumble went to number 1 on the classic rock chart. So
yeah, I saw that.
Anything's possible.
Yeah, that's so cool, man. Well, you know what? You released All Access Live in 2012, a Greatest Hits record 2014. So what can people expect? Right now I'm getting tons of texts and messages coming in talking about how much they can't wait to see you next Friday. So tell people what they can expect next Friday. Do you kind of mix it up? Do you play a lot of the newer stuff, older stuff? What's a John Waite show like right now?
It depends. When we get backstage, we kind of write out a set list, and it's anything. It could be like leaning towards the Babies. It could be leaning towards the middle period of the country stuff, or some of the rock stuff. It's just we have such a lot of songs. If somebody requests something, we try and play it. And if it's something that means the world to somebody, I'll sing it without the band playing. I'll just sing it.
Yeah.
But it's 2 acoustic guitars, electric bass, and a small drum kit. It's like a band. It's not unplugged like me being James Taylor, who is tremendous. But it's the full band, but it's unplugged. And we have a new album coming out called Acoustic Anthology, which is some of the best songs from the past albums that are unplugged. Plus, I recut 6 songs unplugged to go on it. And there's a version of a Donovan song on there as well that's new. That's coming out in August in all the shops. And we have a Greatest Hits record coming out in August as well. That will be in the shops. So it's going to be a busy year. We're doing very well. A lot of these gigs are sold out. I'm really pleased about it, and we're looking forward so much to getting on the road again. The band missed the road. The band really does. kind of, they don't know what to do with themselves when they're not on the road. And it gets to the point where neither do I. You know, after a while, that's what I do. So I'm looking forward to being out there.
Very cool. You guys, we're getting a lot of response. I love it. You guys are listening to the Darryn Yates Show on Riot Radio. Singer-songwriter John Waite live with us right now on the phone. He's out in Santa Monica. Check out his awesome site, johnwaiteworldwide.com. Performing next Friday, June 9th at the Wildie Theater. Got a couple of fan questions, some rapid-fire questions for you, John, if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure.
All right. So now, Zach Dagonia wants to know, do you prefer vinyl, CDs, or digital when listening to music on your own now?
Well, I don't have a record player, but I do have a great Macintosh amp and preamp, and I'm toying with the idea of getting a turntable.
Oh, there you go.
I must admit, as far as stereos go, I use my computer and 2 tiny little Bose speakers, and these days I listen to a lot of classical. I was listening to Puccini before we got on the telephone together. I listen to a lot of different stuff, but I don't really have, to talk about format, I mean, I just don't have anything yet. I mean, I've never really unpacked the amp and the preamp, but I'm definitely thinking about it these days. But I think the excitement of buying a record and the warmth of that sound, the analog sound, I think is, I mean, it's just a different experience. Definitely. A different experience completely, you know?
Exactly. So now Jennifer Barras wants to know, at what point did you realize you had a great singing voice? Was it before or after you learned the bass guitar?
Before. Before I even played anything, I could sing. And I knew it. But it wasn't something that I thought I was ever going to follow into a career.
Yeah.
I just used to sing. Everybody in my house used to sing, and you know, you hear these great early soul records that sing along and hit all the notes. I mean, it was kind of like the elephant in the room was that I could sing. You know?
Well, the greatest singers, the greatest rock singers, pop singers, whatever, are the ones that where the second, you know, a half a note comes out, you know who it is, and you're one of those, man. So, and I'm honored to have you here on my show, so thank you again.
Well, thanks very much. I enjoyed our conversation, and God bless you. I hope I see you down the road.
I'm not letting you go yet. I got a few more. Is that cool?
Oh, okay.
All right.
I thought I was backing away there. Okay.
No, not at all. I just want to make sure you know how much I appreciate it. And
I appreciate it. No, it's fine. It's my pleasure.
And to Tim, I think he's one of your managers. Tim, thank you for all your help. This is awesome. So Laura Olson wants to know. Go ahead. You talk about Tim. Tim's great, isn't he?
No. I just said he's a great guy.
Yeah, he is a very good dude. So Laura also wants to know, if you could go back in time, John, and give advice to your younger self, what would it be?
Don't be nervous. I was always extremely shy as a kid, and I got the job as singer with the Babies because they couldn't find a singer, and I wrote the songs anyway. Really, when it came right down to it.
Right.
Don't be nervous. And I wasn't. I listened to some of the demos the other day, and I'm singing with a lot of confidence, and I pretty much sound like I sound now. I take my time before I hit the mic. I know exactly what I'm doing when I'm going for something, but it's all very spontaneous. But actually, I kind of got it right. I mean, I don't really have a lot of advice for myself. I mean, I wouldn't sign contracts that I signed when I was a kid. I'd be more careful with people in the music business.
Yeah.
You can't really let your guard down because that isn't how it works.
Right, especially nowadays. It seems like it's tougher nowadays. Yeah.
Well, it's pretty tough back then. People are predatory, and I think I've always been pretty honest about how I do whatever I do, and I try and do it in the right way. And sometimes that backfires on you. You're dealing with people that are pretty ruthless, but how else can you do it? You can't be guarded and be a businessman and make great art. You can't try to make great art. It is art, you know. It matters, and you have to play with everything you've got.
Yep.
And I've done that, I think. I really have tried, and I still don't think it's important. But there is no advice, really. Somebody comes in at one. You can't teach anybody wisdom. You have to learn it,
Right.
And that's the truth. Yeah.
Yeah, my dad's a football coach. He'd always tell me, you can't teach courage. You either have it or you don't, to go knock kids out there.
Yeah, that's true. You can't overcome something like that. You either got the balls to step up or you just don't. I mean, that's good. That's good. Your dad's right, yeah.
Yep. So Margaret Ann Morel wants to know, you've had such a great career and colorful life. If you had Aladdin's lamp, what else would you wish for? Is there anything else that you want to do?
Yeah, I didn't get married again. I'd probably think I would get married, but then again, I've had such a great life, Yeah. You look back sometimes and you think, I wake up in the morning and I go, I love my life. I get up, and in my boxer shorts, I sort of walk across my huge condo to the kitchen and put the kettle on, and I always say I love my life. I do. I just say it because I'm glad to be wide awake and in the game and switched on. I'm pretty alive, and I really do love my life. And I wish everyone around me and out there in radio land every happiness you can get. It's easy to have if you stay positive and follow your heart,
Right on.
But there's a lot of dark stuff out there.
Yep.
You got to have your guard up at some point. But the world is pretty great. The world is beautiful.
Good stuff, John. Now, Richard Metcalfe says, John, don't forget it's your round in New York. See you in September. From Rich and Ian from England.
Yeah, Richard. He's a great guy. He had this huge sort of like country house hotel in a beautiful setting in Yorkshire, and he used to live in my hometown. And he hired the band to come up. We were on a European tour, and we went and played in his hotel, and we became great friends. And when we play in New York, he always comes out with his friends, and we hang out and have a few pints. But I'm looking forward to seeing him. He's a great guy.
Very cool. Lynn Pine Wright wants you to come back to the Iridium in New York City.
Well, we were trying to do that, and but then B.B. King's made a much better offer. And then the City Winery made us a much better offer. And I thought, it was just, I didn't want to, we've had a lot of great times at Iridium, and we've worked with some great people there, and B.B. King's. But I think the next time we're going to New York, I want to play a theater. I used to live in New York for 20 years, and I love that city, and any excuse to go back is one I just take. But the last time but one we played there, just to make it work financially, we stayed in a hotel. I have never in my life stayed in a hotel that funky, and it was like something out of this. It was like out of the '60s.
Yeah.
It was just like a crack hotel, and I was like, what are we doing? But the money that it takes to go into New York, stay there, and function and get out in one piece, it's expensive. So I think the next time we go in, we're going to play somewhere that's bigger. And I think we've enjoyed the New York club scene. It's been just really great for us because the unplugged thing we do sometimes, that's what we do. But at the same time, we're capable of playing bigger places, and I think that's what we're going to try for.
Nice. Now, Steve Stockman, he is one of our hosts of a kind of a heavier music show called Homegrown here on Riot Radio. He wants to know some really good Spinal Tap moments over the years, or crazy things that happen. Because, rock, I play music as well in a band called On Tracy Lane, so I know rock shows never go off perfectly. Of course. Now the situation with the when you fell and hurt your knee, that was pretty crazy. Yeah. But any other crazy stories of things happening?
Yeah, there's one in particular that always makes me smile. We were playing Red Rocks in Colorado, I think it is. Red Rocks. It's a big, huge, outdoor, beautiful gig. And I had these really beautiful pigskin leather pants that I lost. So I ran out and bought a pair of... Yeah,
I love it.
It was terrible. I love those pants. We're on the road with Journey and Peter Frampton, and I went out and bought these skin-tight black leather pants on the road, and they were really tight. And I was singing to the audience, and it was like the last song, and everybody's sort of standing up, and we're just killing it, And I jump off the front of the stage into the audience, and I'm singing, and everybody's singing along, passing the mic around, and it was like, good night. And then I turn around and try and get back on stage, and my pants are so tight that I can't get my knee like 2 feet up to get back on stage, right?
Yeah.
I'm just stood there, and my pants are so tight, I can't do anything. And so I kind of rolled onto the stage.
Oh my God.
And a roadie ran out and picked me up, and I sort of went back to the mic and, hey, that's what's going on.
Yeah.
But that's called death by pants. It's like that was just like, I couldn't believe it was happening, and it was funny, but it was like, it was so Spinal Tap. I mean, that is Spinal Tap.
Oh, that's fantastic. I love that.
Yeah.
All right, I got one more fan question here, and I want to thank all the fans who are listening of John Waite. You guys, sorry I couldn't get to all your questions. I don't think John wants to be here for 2 hours. But Christi Woodley Brandvold asked, I think you kind of touched on this before too, John. What has been your biggest inspiration in your life that has made you the fabulous songwriter that you are?
My life.
Yeah.
No, I write from my life. I don't look at the charts and try and write one of those. I never did. And
nice. I love that.
No, it's just my life. I look around at my hands and I write a song.
Well,
there isn't anything. I mean, there's some superb writers like Burt Bacharach and Keith Richards and Mick Jagger and Pete Townsend and the list is endless. Like authors,
Yeah.
And everybody's trying to do the same thing. They're trying to create something new, really.
Nice. Now, before I get into my little Darryn Yates Show rapid fire questions, I saw this quote on your website, man. It is beautiful. It's awesome. I got to read it. Songs and songwriting keep me inspired, moving forward. I tend to scribble down notes, lyrics, or just random thoughts on pieces of paper, backs of cigarette packs, sometimes on my shirt cuff. Rock and roll is the closest thing I've got to a spiritual power. It's been the higher voice in my life, and it's never let me down. John Waite. That's beautiful, man.
Well, yeah, I like that myself.
I'm going to get that tattooed on my back in old English.
Yeah, me too.
So I got some rapid fire questions for you, John. I know you're busy, guys. Your favorite all-time singer and your favorite all-time band? If you had to pick one.
Free. Free would be with Paul Rodgers. When I was a kid and I heard Free, I mean, the Beatles and the Stones and the Who and the cowboy music that I listened to as a kid was all hugely influential. But when I heard Free with Paul Rodgers, it seemed like it encapsulated all the blues and whatever it is I was going through in my 17-year-old brain.
Yeah.
I understood it immediately, and it was honest. And Paul Rodgers is still a magnificent singer. I mean, you have like a handful of great British singers, like Rod Stewart, Robert Plant, Terry Reid. The list just goes on.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it?
Somewhere around Paul Rodgers, you can't really, after that, it's just downhill,
I love it. Well, man, your voice and your songwriting, you're very versatile. You've touched on blues, like I said, pop and rock, and you dabbled in a little bit of country kind of vibe. I mean, not many singers can do that. I mean, kudos to you, man.
Well, everything is eclectic. I mean, you go outside and you look at the stars and you look at the sun or the pavement, the sidewalk, or you look at the grass and the trees and people's eyes. You get a lot of stuff coming at you all the time. And everything influences everything. When you walk outside the door and go and get a cup of coffee, you're going to see 1,000 things in a minute. And you edit and you think of these things and you look at them. And everything changes your life. Right. Everything, all the time. There's no such thing as standing still. Nice. That's death.
Yep, that's exactly right. So, John, your favorite movie? Do you like comedies? Do you like horror? You like?
Oh no, I'm a big movie buff. I collect movies.
Nice.
The Criterion collection is that sort of, you can buy DVDs of. But I watch. Man, I'm so into it. I mean, I watch everything from Kurosawa to David Lean. I mean, all the really great Turner Classic Movies is like, that's all I really watch outside of Bill Maher and CNN. But I love movies. I think a really great movie that I've been preoccupied with for a lot of my life has been Performance. Nicholas Roeg's movie. Mick Jagger was in it, but it was a psychedelic kind of take on London and exchanging personalities as a gangster and a retired hermit kind of rock star who exchanged personalities. And it's all sort of like Bo Hayes, the South American writer, is very influenced by him. And it's a profoundly deep movie. It's really got a lot of things going on. And if you get a chance to see Performance, I would jump at it. There's a guy called David Litvinoff, who was like the engine behind London's scene from the 50s to the 60s, and he was friends with gangsters and royalty and rock stars. And he had the concept, really. David Litvinoff is a mythic figure. But these characters all came together for this one movie. David Camel, I think, is involved in it. It's really something. You can spend. I've got several books on it, but it's a deep. It's once you open that door and go in, it's one of those movies that lasts. It's lasted.
Check it out.
Oh, it's life changing. I've watched it maybe 100 times. Yeah,
that's awesome. So John, your favorite fast food or your favorite dish?
Fast food. Oh my God.
Yeah, do you?
Fast food. I don't really eat fast food.
You don't go into Taco Bell for a $2 chicken burrito after a show or something?
Taco Bell is great. No, on the road, Taco Bell is great. You can get a veggie burrito.
There you go.
And, and I'm not kidding. You can wolf those down, and it's about $8. And
right.
And when the band are in the van and we're going somewhere, somebody says Taco Bell, and we pull in and just chow down. But we have to, the rest of the trip we have to wind the windows down.
Right. So what about a fancy restaurant? What do you order?
I'm into lobster. I like lobster very much.
Yeah.
I like Indian food. More than anything, I could live off Indian food. I mean, last week I had Indian food about maybe 4 times.
Nice, all right.
Yeah, it's good vegetarian, cauliflower, I mean, it's just great. You can either eat vegetarian or fish, but whatever you're going to have with Indian food, it's a British thing. All British people eat a lot of it.
There you go. I love that. So, John, do you have any pre-show rituals that you do before a show? Do you eat certain food? Do you do vocal warm-ups?
No.
Do you do push-ups? Do you do jumping jacks?
No, I don't do anything. I don't, I used to smoke a cigarette and then drink a bottle of water. I mean, I don't have that thing where get ready people, here I come. And I just walk out and sing. I mean, I try and get the band focused. We all sort of, everybody's not allowed in the dressing room for at least 15 minutes before the show.
Yep.
And we talk about the set very seriously.
And
we tune up.
Just get dialed in.
Yeah, there's a moment when you have to sort of pull it all together. You've been on the road for, at least 15 hours that day to get where you are. And you're going to go out there and play for an hour and a half, and you have to pull people, and they're all ready to do it. I mean, that's what they do. Everybody's playing scales and looking at the set list and talking about keys and what we're going to do with this. And the band kind of rehearse. I mean, we've never really had a rehearsal. I mean, we rehearsed. The band that cut Rough and Tumble rehearsed for 5 hours before we cut 7 songs. And when we played the European tour about 9 years ago, we rehearsed in a hotel room in Dudley before we played a festival with that band when they flew in. But I can't remember, apart from those 2 moments, rehearsing anywhere. I mean, we just do sound check, get the right sound, and then talk about it. And if somebody's coming in to play a gig for the first time, a guitar player or something, we just do it backstage. I mean, I know it sounds probably improbable, but it works. I mean, people operate on a pretty high standard when you're doing the stuff that we do, and you learn by just the house lights coming up and away you go.
Nice. Yeah, that's awesome, man. So John, if you weren't a professional musician, rock star, what would you be doing, you think?
I'd write. I think I'd write a book. I like to write prose, and I read a lot. And I went to art school to be a painter, so maybe I'd be a starving painter somewhere.
There you go.
They reckon that painting's dead. Photography killed it. You can't really paint anymore and do something that's really mind-blowing. It's more photography now and more modern art, and that's the way it should be. But I think I'd seriously like to write a book. I started to toy with it about 2 years ago, and I have a book I've been going back to and looking at and fleshing out the characters. But I'd like to have a crack at writing a book. I read a lot, and I enjoy literature. I do.
I love it. You guys, the John Waite love is coming in. You guys are listening to the Darryn Yates Show on Riot Radio. Check out John's website, johnwaiteworldwide.com. He's playing next Friday, June 9th at the Wildey Theater here in this area in Edwardsville, Illinois, about 15 minutes from St. Louis. So, John, I want to thank you again. And would you do a couple IDs for us? Would that be all right?
Sure. Let me get a pen. Yeah.
Do you mind? Yeah. I appreciate that.
No, it's okay. I'll do it. Let me get a pen.
Very cool. And again, if Tim's listening, Tim, thank you. I mean, the emails and texts are pouring in. You guys, I love it. I might have to go to the show next week. I might have to tell my wife. We're supposed to be having dinner with some family coming in, but I think I'm going to break that. John, is that cool? You cool with that?
Well, bring them along. I mean, just get in touch with Tim. Get in touch with Tim, he'll get you in.
I'm going to do that.
Sold out, so.
Tim, you hear that? All right. That's great.
So what do you need me to say?
Yeah, hey, this is John Waite, and you're listening to the Darryn Yates Show.
Darryn Yates.
Yep.
Okay. Ready?
Yep.
Hi, this is John Waite with my good friend Darryn Yates on the Darryn Yates Show.
I love it. And now if you don't mind doing one for our overall station here, Riot Radio. Hey, this is John Waite. You're listening to Riot Radio.
Okay. Hi, everybody. This is John Waite, and you're listening to Riot Radio.
Yes. Love it. True rocker.
Indeed.
First takes. Done. I love it. John, thank you again, my friend. I can't wait for you to kick some butt here next week in town to Wildie. Much love to you, and congrats on everything, and good luck with everything, and I hope we can do this again.
Yeah, thank you so much. I enjoyed talking to you, Darryn. You're a smart guy, and it was good. It was good fun. Thank
you, John. I appreciate that. Thanks to Tim again, and JohnWaiteWorldwide.com. Very cool website. All right, John, we'll talk soon.
Right, take care, man. Bye-bye.
You too. Bye-bye. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed John Waite calling in to the Darryn Yates Show on Riot Radio. That was fun.